musicians who probably went to college for music, but then got an MBA, that sort of thing. And then, because of the isolation of Sioux Falls, we import string players to fill out our string section from Minneapolis, which is 4 hours away. So it's quite an ordeal to try and make that feasible in order for that to happen, but it works.
Do they stay overnight if you have, how many times do you do each concert? Is it once, twice?
Generally twice, sometimes only once.
So do they drive the 4 hours and 4 hours back each time?
No, we put them up. Yeah, I don't get, probably my biggest challenge is that I don't get those players for all of my rehearsals. They come in the middle of the rehearsal process, so there's a little bit of, the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
It is, and that's harder on the strings you do have in the rehearsals, maybe not your 2 quartets, but the others who are really exposed and they can't hear so many experienced people playing.
Right. That's the part that's not quite heaven yet. Right. So, but getting back to your other question, what does it mean then when you put a piece like the Lutoslawski in front of them? This orchestra has now risen to a challenge so many times, time and time again. And, the Lutoslawski is a wonderful piece of music. They didn't know it going into it, but it is, in fact, a big showpiece for the orchestra. And so they really embraced it wholeheartedly. But this is also an orchestra that we're in the middle of a Mahler cycle now. And now, past the first symphony, none of the Mahler symphonies had ever been heard in Sioux Falls, South Dakota live. So everything is new that sense. So that's very exciting. And now we're doing, I call it a 3/4 staged opera every year. That's huge. We did
You're
Butterfly.
You're working your way through Puccini.
Right. Butterfly Tosca and next year Turandot.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think we'll probably get to Verdi the year after that.
But there's always Fanciulla del West and Bohème. You haven't done Bohème.
Yeah, well, the thing is about that, just an aside on the opera front, because that was another big question when I came, how does the orchestra grow? How do we expand our series? What do we do? And there was also this beginnings of a regional opera company in Sioux Falls. So we've now expanded our concert series by a concert in order to have this, 3/4 staged opera with the orchestra on stage every season, because it's been such a huge success. I was not prepared for what it used to be.
Success with the audience.
Yeah. Well, in every sense. The orchestra loves it. We get great singers. It's really, really, really a fabulous experience. But what I didn't want to do is start programming repertoire that regional opera company would do.
Right.
They're going to do the Mozart operas. They're going to do a Bohème. They're going to do a Traviata.
Yeah, I guess. So you do something bigger.
We're going to stay on the grand opera scale here. We'll probably do Verdi. I've got a Dutchman in my mind.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. I'm a Wagner fanatic. What can I say?
The Ring? Is the Ring coming?
No,
I'm joking. Yes, you have a string player problem. You have a length problem. You have a casting problem, I would think.
Well, yeah, but Dutchman's only 2.5 hours.
No, that you can do.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things here, as I hear this, is how much depends on the music director in this case, because you are the impetus for every bit of this.
Well, that's not unusual in a situation, but it does feel creatively a little bit like I'm an island. Yeah. Except that I get to come to New York and have lunch with you, and it always gets my creative juices flowing.
It's true, but they're flowing. They were flowing before we knew each other. I'm not going to take credit for anything creative that you do. Nobody can take away. But when you say, okay, I want to do a concert opera, does anybody on the board say, David, you know how much that's going to cost? We can't afford that.
Well, that's another great thing about Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Another thing that I noticed even as a candidate, there's this sort of can-do attitude. I don't know, again, it's that sort of Midwest roll up your sleeves and get in there and make things happen. I'll never forget there was this venture capitalist that I had dinner with my first season there, who was just practically leaning over the table, grabbing me by the neck, telling me that I needed to create the New York Philharmonic in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, But there's this, and he was a living example, He said, I started my business from nothing, and I built it here in Sioux Falls because I could do it here where I couldn't do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And there is that. It does help the fact that we are really valued. The orchestra's a treasure.
Yeah.
And the corporate community, really supports the orchestra very well. So, but there are, the flip side of it is that they are Norwegian Lutherans, so they're very, very fiscally responsible people as well. So there's a can-do attitude, but they also, have a great degree of responsibility. So the shorter answer to your question is simply yes. I do have people on the board that will say to me, okay, what's this going to cost? But they respect my vision enough and the results that we've been able to achieve that they're behind me and want to make it happen.
And besides, they can't miss how exciting it is to do a concert opera, too, especially with the kind of pieces that you're picking. Right. So they've got to be excited about that. So can you be indiscreet and say how much more one of these concert operas costs?
Well, we sort of came head-to-head with that this time around because, I just sort of blunder my way into these programming decisions oftentimes. But, Turandot is the only Puccini opera that's still under copyright.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Grand rights,
yes.
That sort of thing. And so there was some sort of, negotiating through the season that we had to do. Like we were going to do a Don Quixote next year. We're going to play it 5 times for all these school children, and that's a huge orchestra, And so once we found that, we had to backpedal and say, okay, so we'll do Beethoven 6 this year and Don Quixote next year.
Yes.
But it's always within this, we'll find a solution. We'll make it happen.
And the biggest orchestras make that kind of trade-off.
Of course.
They have to.
Yeah.
But it occurred to me, as I'm asking you that question, that doing contemporary music is also an extra cost.
Yeah. Well, Well, especially with the chamber orchestra programs, as you know, we tour them.
Sure.
So you get repeat performances.
Yeah.
So I don't get to do much contemporary music on the chamber orchestra for that reason.
Right, because you have to pay now something for every performance, a royalty for every performance.
That's right. So, $1,200 for one piece of music doesn't make a lot of sense.
Although it does occur to me that in your case, I'm guessing here, but I would imagine I'm right, the differential, the extra cost for doing a contemporary piece is a lower percentage than it would be for the Pittsburgh Symphony or the Philharmonic, because they have all the standard pieces in their library, so they don't have to rent parts.
Right. Well,
whereas you probably have to rent the materials for everything, or virtually.
Well, we buy. Yeah, we do have to buy them. Yeah. I mean, we have a decent library, but no, you're right. You're right, but they do. Even the fee for the performance of the music is less for us than the same piece than it would be for the New York Philharmonic, and they take into consideration the size of the venue, the ticket price, all that sort of stuff.
But then the Mahler cycle, that is an interesting thing because now you have music that typically requires extremely large orchestra, maybe many extra players, all those horns for Mahler 1, for example, which is the first time I ever heard you conduct. I guess when we were getting to know each other, you sent me a CD of your conducting. Oh. Mahler 1 was one of the pieces.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was. And you really got them to play over their heads.